Okay, so the next poem I'm doing is Aunt Jennifer's Tigers. I will read through it as I always do twice, and then I'll talk to you what the poem's meaning is. Aunt Jennifer's Tigers. Aunt Jennifer's tigers prance across a screen, bright topaz denizens of a world of green. They do not fear the men beneath the tree. They pace in sleek chivalric certainty. Aunt Jennifer fingers fluttering through her wool find even the ivory needle hard to pull. The massive weight of Uncle's wedding band sits heavily upon Aunt Jennifer's hand. When Aunt is dead, her terrified hands will lie, still ringed with ordeals she was mastered by. The tigers in the panel that she made will go on prancing proud and unafraid. So I'll read it again. Aunt Jennifer's tigers prance across a screen, bright topaz denizens of a world of green. They do not fear the men beneath the tree. They pace in sleek chivalric certainty. Aunt Jennifer's fingers fluttering through her wool find even the ivory needle hard to pull. The massive weight of Uncle's wedding band sits heavily upon Aunt Jennifer's hand. When Aunt is dead, her terrified hands will lie, still ringed with ordeals she was mastered by. The tigers in the panel that she made will go on prancing, proud and unafraid. Okay, so Adrienne Rich wrote this poem when she was 21. She wrote it in 1951. So stick that anywhere you want on the book. And it is basically a poem about this woman, a fictional character, Aunt Jennifer. She's not real. Adrienne didn't have an aunt called Jennifer, but a fictional character who is embroidering on a screen. Embroidering screens they would put they would have embroidered and put in front of fireplaces and stuff in the 50s and 60s. So Aunt Jennifer's, she is embroidering tigers on a screen, and what these tigers represent is a very masculine quality, and we see here Aunt Jennifer herself is feminine and weak. And what the poem actually is about, the theme of the poem is female powerlessness as a result of male domination. So write that somewhere into your books, please. Theme is female powerlessness as a result of male domination. Because Adrienne Rich was only 21 at the time, I don't think she was married, but what she is going on and why she wrote this poem and used this theme is because her father was quite dominant in her household. She had a really good upbringing. She was well looked after. Her family were wealthy. Her father was a doctor and a lecturer, and her mother was a pianist and a composer. So she didn't want for anything, but her father was very dominant on her schooling. He made sure that she was homeschooled. He had very intensive tutorials for her. So she did feel like it was a man's world, basically. So, as I said, the theme is female powerlessness. And the poem focuses on how trapped Aunt Jennifer is in her marriage. And it draws a contrast to the tigers. She's characterised by the weight of her husband's oppression and her husband's wedding ring, and it traps and confines her. But the tigers are free, and they're epitomised in their contrasted movement in a careless state. So I'll go through it stanza by stanza as I always do. Okay, Aunt Jennifer's tigers prance across a screen, bright topaz denizens of a world of green. So the poem begins with a mention of a screen that she's knitted or embroidered, and the words and images mentioned have a positive nature. They're bright, topaz, nice bright colours. Green suggests a welcoming and a preferable environment. Colourful, welcoming environment. A similar effect is achieved then with the mention of how the tigers prance. And to prance is to dance very confidently. So they prance. They prance with confidence. And then this whole stanza, so Aunt Jennifer's tigers prance across the screen. shows that they're confident, these tigers. They're bright topaz denizens. Denizens there just means an animal of a world of green. They do not fear the men beneath the tree. They have no fear. They do not fear the men. Highlight, they do not fear the men for me, please. This is juxtaposing what the women do. They do not fear the men beneath the tree. They pace in sleek, chivalric certainty. So we look here, they pace in sleek, chivalric certainty. And the language used is significant, in particular this phrase here, sleek, chivalric certainty. Sleek is once again linked to confidence and thus carefree nature of the tigers, while the mention of chivalry and certainty contrasts with Aunt Jennifer's world. The chivalry alludes to medieval knights who took a code of chivalry, and it involved respecting and honouring women, which doesn't exist in Aunt Jennifer's world. So the sleek, chivalric certainty that juxtaposes Aunt Jennifer and her world. Now, next stanza. Here we have the strong, in the first stanza, strong, colourful tigers that don't fear anything. And now we have weak Aunt Jennifer who finds it tough even to pull a needle for his hand. So the second stanza introduces Rich's technique of contrast. Her language reveals this as the word fluttering suggests that Aunt Jennifer is of an advanced age, and it contrasts and juxtaposes. Juxtaposes, write it in. It juxtaposes the youthful exuberance of the tigers. Juxtaposes Aunt Jennifer with the youthful exuberance of the tigers. Aunt Jennifer's fingers fluttering through her wool. The fluttering there as well, so you can imagine an old woman, her hands fluttering to do something, so it suggests that she is old, but it also refers to trembling. If your hands are fluttering, they're trembling, so it suggests that Aunt Jennifer is affected by her difficult living experience. It's affecting her maybe psychologically or physically, that she's shaking or trembling. So we can take it that Rich might be doing two things here. She could be either building on what was just said, that Aunt Jennifer is affected by her horrendous situation where her husband controls her. Or with the word fluttering here, we could take it that her life has been the result of such domination that she's now breaking down physically and psychologically, that she's shaking, doing any mundane task. So Aunt Jennifer's fingers fluttering through her wool. A bit of alliteration going on there. Aunt Jennifer's fingers fluttering through her wool find even the ivory needle hard to pull. So again, as a result of Aunt Jennifer's age, she finds even knitting or embroidery, whatever Aunt Jennifer's doing, she finds this difficult. Aunt Jennifer can't pull the needle. It's an emphatic metaphor for how little control she has in weaving her own life. So I want you to highlight that one as well then. Find even the ivory needle hard to pull. As I said, emphatic metaphor for how little control she has in weaving her own life, that she's totally controlled. She also uses symbolism in this line with the mention of the colour ivory. Now we've already had colour in this poem up here with green, topaz and bright, and now we have the colour ivory. So she uses symbolism here with the mention of this colour. It doesn't have the vividness of the colours associated with the tigers, which symbolises their certainty and carefree attitude that Aunt Jennifer can't have. While the tigers just juxtapose with their backdrop, representing their ability to do as they please, Aunt Jennifer blends into her surroundings, the colour ivory here. And these are the surroundings that the male controls, the household. And it's a poignant metaphor for how she cannot impose herself in her own setting and in her own living experience. The massive weight of Uncle's wedding band sits heavily upon Jennifer's hand. It's not even Aunt Jennifer's wedding band, it belongs to her uncle. So it's basically she's wearing the husband's wedding band, and it sits heavily upon her hand. She's not even wearing it, it's sitting heavily on her hand. Rich associates Aunt Jennifer's age and weakness with their time spent in marriage through use of imagery here and wordplay. The wedding ring isn't presented in positive admiring terms as a wedding ring should be. Instead, it's a massive weight. Underline massive weight for me, please. And it has metaphorical connotations of maybe an anchor or something that's weighing her down, it's weighing her hand down. It's making it difficult for her to pull the needle through because of the weight of this ring. So Aunt Jennifer finds it difficult to do anything because of the weight of the marriage that she's in. So that's stanza 2. Now the final stanza. When Aunt is dead, her terrified hands will lie, still ringed with ordeals she was mastered by. The tigers in the panel that she made will go on prancing proud and unafraid. So Richard's use of imagery at the beginning of the last stanza sums up the depressing situation for Aunt Jennifer, as she likens the character now to how she'll be in death. So when she is dead, her terrified hands will lie. Underline terrified for me, please. Still ringed emphasises just how trapped Aunt Jennifer is by her husband's influence. Still ringed. Trapped eternally by husband's influence. On one hand, it suggests that Aunt Jennifer is figuratively dead already because she has no real living experience. Maybe she is kind of dead on the inside already. Or it could also suggest that the memory of her time entrapped in marriage is so overpowering that she'll not be able to escape this after passing. The fact that she's still ringed with ordeals that she was mastered by, and ordeals, they're horrific things to happen to somebody. The fact that she still has these after death, it adds to the poignancy of the poem, because usually you'd expect death to offer some kind of escape, but this suggests absolutely otherwise, that she's still trapped. So she has no escape. 2 things are of note in the conclusion. Again, the tigers are mentioned here. The tigers in the panel that she made will go on prancing, proud and unafraid. So the mention of the tigers that she knitted or embroidered, there's an implication that her subconscious desire to live a life of freedom. And secondly then, while Aunt Jennifer is associated with old age, entrapment and eventually death throughout the poem, the tigers never lose their youthful, exuberant state. And the alliteration here with prancing proud shows how easy they have it. It makes an easy reading of the sentence, and it conveys the effortless nature of their life, and again juxtaposing it to the tough life that Aunt Jennifer had with her husband. But you'd wonder then, with this in mind, you have to wonder, is there hope at the end of the poem? Because even though Aunt Jennifer lived this life of entrapment, she was mastered, she had a massive weight of the ring, her fingers were fluttering. Even though she lived this kind of life, she's after creating something that's going to last forever. The tigers in the panel that she made will go on prancing proud and unafraid. So you wonder, is there hope at the end? It may be that the text chronicles psychological and physical breakdown as a result of male empowerment. But it might also be that Jennifer has, in hindsight, created the screen deliberately so that the tigers don't experience something similar to her, which explains why they're mentioned again at the end, as there is confirmation of her experience and hence what she does not long for the tigers. So she's created something that she doesn't want for herself in these tigers, and it's going to last forever. So through creating these tigers, she has got some kind of freedom, maybe. So there could be some hope at the end of the poem. The tigers in the panel that she made will go on prancing proud and unafraid. So even though in death she is still going to be trapped, the tigers that she created, so she actually did make something that was free. So that's Aunt Jennifer's tigers. There's a few poetic techniques in there. Prance and prance, repetition. We've got the few bits of alliteration with chivalric certainty, fingers fluttering, prancing and proud. we've got a regular rhyme scheme as well. With AABB, AABB, AABB. So the whole rhyme scheme throughout is AABB.